Hello, this is Ian over at sexy.jpeg.art, and this is a tutorial on how I make custom overstuffed plush minky teeth. In this video, I'll be providing a list of detailed instructions on all the materials that you need, as well as a couple videos and pictures and examples of the pattern and how it works. I will be posting this tutorial pattern. It will be available on my website for free. I'll be attaching the link for that in the description to this video if you would like to follow along on the same pattern that we are working on in this tutorial. Due to the size and the complexity of these teeth pattern, it is recommended that you have a sewing machine as well as basic machine and hand sewing knowledge, as well as patience. This is a rather time-consuming project, and it is perfectly normal to make mistakes or have to retrace parts of patterns or redo teeth simply because of each individual piece having its own unique shape, but it is worth it in the long run, in my opinion. Each individual tooth be its own unique shape allows you to work with your thread sculpting and curvature purposes. It's a lot easier to turn it into a 3D shape. Alright, let's get on with the material list. You are going to need 1 to 2 yards of minky in your desired tooth color. You can use an alternative fabric, but I recommend a soft plush minky with a strong woven knit backing that will support both the structure and the shape of the tooth. You're going to need a writing utensil to mark the backing of your fabric, preferably something with a precision pointed tip when tracing out your pattern, and make sure it's something that's not going to bleed through to the other side of the fabric. The image that is pictured does not have the best example of that. That marker will bleed through. This is just for tutorial purposes. I recommend keeping a both small and large pair of sharp scissors for cutting fabric. I use the smaller scissors for rounded corners and larger scissors to cut strips of the minky as you go to sew it. Next, you're going to need a needle and spool of thread. I use an off-white spool of upholstery thread for my teeth in this video, and I like to finish my seams with a small curved needle and also while attaching the teeth to the base. You're going to need a good amount of sewing clips or pins for closing and stuffing while sewing the seams and attaching them to the base for fitment. You will need 1 small paintbrush. Both sides will be utilized in aid for turning the fabric inside out as well as stuffing it. And you will need a good stuffing material. I use just a simple polyester stuffing. Not including the price of the sewing machine, all of these materials cost me roughly $30 to $45. The first step is to cut out each individual tooth, making note of the direction each tooth is facing, and I like to keep the first through the third set of incisor teeth together. This will be handy for thread sculpting later on. You're going to want to clip your fabric soft side in, making sure to take note of your pile direction. It needs to be both going in the same direction. Sit your pattern pieces in order, flipped on the paper, and then trace. Your marker should be marking the edge of the pattern as well as the fabric to ensure the perfect shape. Once that is traced, you can flip each individual pattern piece as you lay it atop and trace as well, making note of the direction of each tooth, ensuring we have both left and right side. Making sure you have a nice mirrored pattern, I now cut and pin together the fabric, making sure there are no open ends, and it is now ready to start sewing. Starting and stopping each seam with a back stitch, I use a thread length of 2.5 millimeters with very little seam allowance. I'm pretty much sewing directly onto the pattern that I have traced here, leaving each bottom of the tooth uncut and unsewn. So the sides of the teeth are going to be cut and the bottom is going to be left open. That's going to help us for stuffing in the future. After each tooth has been sewn, I am going to cut each strip of teeth in half to make sure that everything is lined up properly, leaving a little bit of room in between the bottom because each individual tooth is going to have a small flap underneath. This will again assist us in the turning and stuffing, as well as adding a little bit of a 3D effect. Now is a good time to review your sewing, make sure that everything is lined up properly, and you can also sit your pattern pieces on top of the seams to make sure everything is good before you start to cut. With a small pair of scissors, you can now carefully cut out each individual tooth starting at the sides with a very minimal seam allowance. Again, this is going to help make sure that the shape is correct, and you want to round the corners, making sure not to cut through any seams or threads. This is a very delicate process and it takes quite a lot of precision and time, so just be patient and don't be afraid to re-sew and cut a tooth at this point. It is not too late. As an extra measure, I am lining up the pattern piece with the finished inside out tooth just to make sure that the general shape is pretty accurate to the pattern size. It is not going to be exact because of how this pattern works. It just needs to be the general same shape. As you can see, I am being precise and just rounding out some corners and making sure there's as little fabric on the edges as possible. Whenever you are satisfied with the shape of the interior, you can begin the process of flipping the fabric. I like to start by using the two flaps that we left and slowly weave them into each other, and you can use the aid of your handy paintbrush as well to turn these fabric inside out. I like to, with these cylindrical shapes, you can sometimes roll them back. It is pretty tricky to get these tiny pieces inside out. So that toothbrush is quite handy and useful for projects like this, especially on a small scale. Once you are satisfied with the flipped shape of your tooth, you can begin the process of stuffing. I switched to a front incisor piece for this example because this one is going to be thread sculpted, so technically it is 3 teeth. And I just like to ball up a little bit of the polyester stuffing and use a toothbrush to gently push and shape the fabric into its desired shape. This is again, very tedious and time-consuming project, so this is probably the longest that you're going to spend working on this aside from sewing it into the head. You want to make sure that you are happy with each shape of each individual tooth, and here I am matching up the pattern with the tooth just to make sure that I am happy with the product, and I was. So I clipped the edges, and you can see me following the same instructions for all of the rest of the teeth here. I will speed up this video to save you the 15 minutes.
What's that big marshmallow floating in the air? Who could eat anything without a care? It's Kirby! It's Kirby! Kirby is cute and lots of fun. Takes the power before the day is done. Marshmallow good, fair and just. Really big tummy, so eating is a must. Mini square fat, mini square fat, square fat, mini square fat, square fat, mini square fat, square fat, mini square fat. That big marshmallow floating in the air. It's Kirby, it's Kirby. Who could eat anything without a care? It's Kirby, it's Kirby. Ruler of the dreamer, in the air he hovers. Defeats the enemy and changes colors. He's the best in the world, he's better than Furby. So we love that marshmallow, we love Kirby. Mini square fat, mini square fat, square fat, mini square fat, square fat, mini square fat, square fat, mini square fat. That big marshmallow floating in the air. It's Kirby, it's Kirby. Who could eat anything without a care? It's Kirby, it's Kirby.
Once every tooth is sewn, stuffed, and closed, you can now begin the process of pinning and fitting the teeth to your head. This is entirely based on style and personal preference. You will see me adjusting and refitting the pieces as I seem fit. This is kind of just a trial and error thing. Using reference photos can be very helpful for this process, but I will use typically a ladder stitch or a small disappearing stitch to attach the teeth to the head later on. I may make a tutorial in the future for attachment, but for now I'm just going to be pinning things, and I will showcase the completed result shortly. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you found this helpful or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments, or always you can send me an email or message on any of my social medias, and I'm glad to help. Anyways, this is the finished result of a full hyena jaw set.